Today, we are investigating. It's been about 2 weeks since the launch of the RTX 5080 and the 5090, and these guys are still not in stock, and the theories have been running absolutely crazy of what the is going on. The only way you can buy these right now is if you buy a pre-built PC being bundled with an Intel CPU that nobody wants to buy. So you have to pay like $5,700 to get the 5090 you want. It's crazy. Something I want you to notice too on a site like Newegg, because this site still lists all of the graphics cards. Do you see any graphics cards that are going for $2,000? This is the 5090. MSRP is $2,000. 2800, $2,000 graphics card. First MSRP graphics card we've seen. 2500. 30, no, that's a 4090. Oops. Yeah, you're seeing 2700, 2200. You're seeing 2600, 2700, 2400. We only saw one MSRP graphics card listed on the website. And it's a very similar story to the RTX 5080. Again, 1600, 1400. This is supposed to be $1,000 GPU. 1300. 1300, 1400. I mean, that's like $1,500, but 1300, you know, 1400. Nothing is matching the MSRP. It is not hitting the advertised price. And I don't know if many people who even have actually bought these graphics cards have been able to even buy them for the MSRP price. Maybe only the people that have bought Founders Edition graphics cards. You might blame this on these are just out of stock. Nvidia couldn't make enough graphics cards, and that's why the price is going up. And this situation isn't going to get any better if that's your running theory, because it's in the UK. It's in the UK, okay? The stock isn't going to be restocked of these graphics cards. The 5090 not for 3 to 16 weeks. Who knows if it's how much that's going to be. And then there's also 2 to 6 weeks on the 5080. So this launch has been quite a big mess as well. We've seen some funny little blips, like this guy who was on Reddit. He got an RTX 5080. He bought a 5080. But when he pulled it out of the box, the label on the cooler that is a 5090. And you know, you think you just got a crazy deal, that they made a mistake in the factory and that you got a 5090 instead of a 5080. You can see the QA at Nvidia isn't really doing a great job, because he plugged it in and it's a 5080. The cooler is labeled 5090, but it's actually a 5080. And you can see in GPU-Z as well, also a 5080. It's a crazy situation that this launch has been as weird and wild as it is right now. But that's old news. See, we already know these cards are sold out, but there's been theories of why they're sold out. The first thing that I proposed in my last video is that, hey, Nvidia is intentionally manipulating the stock in order to make these graphics cards look more exciting and more in demand than they actually are. Because if you go to a website and you see that all the graphics cards, you know, are out of stock and all that stuff, that makes you think that these graphics cards are special. And Nvidia, I've talked to Nvidia, they have a response for what my theory has been about this. The evidence I have that Nvidia could be doing this intentionally, like intentionally manipulating the stock, is because they know these graphics cards really aren't that exciting. And the reviews that we've seen as well haven't been that positive on cards like the RTX 5080. The 5090's been, you know, kind of meh, but people will still buy it because it's the best. When they briefed everyone about the RTX 5080, they compared it to the 4080 and the 4080 Super, the last generation cards, and they straight up said that it was not a massive uplift over that it was barely noticeable of an uplift. And if you're releasing a graphics card after, what, two and a half years after the other card came out, or whatever, it is over 2 years, and that's all you're getting maybe 10%. I mean, it's technically the same price, so it's not the end of the world. It's not like it's a bad graphics card or a generational, like you're going back or anything like that. So if they know that the cards aren't that exciting, it would actually make a lot of sense to manipulate the stock to make it seem like they're more exciting than they are. But there's also been another theory floating around, like hardware on boxes.
Yeah, what sort of margin would you expect from a $1,000 card? Like single digit sort of margins, 5-10%, that's peasant level money. We could be charging $1,200, $1,300 for these cards, and going from making a 5% margin to starting to make a 20%, 30% margin. There's a clear incentive for AIBs.
They're playing that game where they're only selling the models, the ones that they have stock of the most, are the most expensive models of graphics cards available. And that would explain a lot of things, because we go on these websites and the only graphics cards that are available are over MSRP, like way over. The board partners that make these graphics cards could get a lot of money for it. We see the 5080, I mean, it's supposed to be $1,000, but you know, for this graphics card, it is 65% over the MSRP. That's a 65% markup on it. And I know Asus is making a lot of money on that graphics card. Yes, it probably does cost a lot to create the graphics card itself, but there's no way they're not making a lot of money on that card. We've also seen that MSI and Asus, this would lend a lot of credence to that theory, they've upped the price like crazy. An RTX 5090 is $3,400. MSI graphics card, the liquid cooled 5090, $2,800. You could buy two very solid PCs for just the price of that graphics card. Asus doesn't even make MSRP graphics cards of the RTX 5080 anymore. And you can't convince me that they can't make money on a $1,000 graphics card, especially when you look at the specs of the 5080. When Asus initially launched these new 5080s and 5090s, and it was at MSRP, but that was only a limited time price. And this is Asus's only MSRP graphics card, and now it costs $1,265. You go to Asus's website, they actually have prices for what these cards should cost. And just scrolling through here, this one is $3,400, $1,650, $3,000 for a 5090, freaking $2,500 for a 5090, $2,700 for a 5090, $1,500 for a 5080. Look, that's their cheapest card. So at least the board partners are upping the price like crazy, and this only can exist in a world where there is no competition. AMD is not competing on the high-end graphics cards. We don't know how much their new graphics cards are going to cost, but they aren't competing over $1,000. They've already even confirmed that, which just leaves this insane vacuum where Nvidia can just suck tons of money out of this. Now, there could be a back and forth here. Is like, is this the AIB board partners? Is this them charging a ton more money for graphics cards in this artificial way? Or this could also be, you know, low key behind the scenes happening with Nvidia. So what has Nvidia said about this? Because I did have a little one-on-one kind of talked with some people at Nvidia. Are the theories true that they're manipulating the market and that kind of stuff? I'm not going to show you anything. I don't want to like leak, you know, the conversation or anything like that. But I can just tell you, like in summary of what they told me. Basically, the reason that Nvidia has said that this is happening is because the demand on the graphics cards are very high. And that's something that we can't really know. Like, honestly, I don't feel like the overall perception of these graphics cards is super enthusiastic on YouTube at least, but that is only one side of the market. So I can't really say for sure. I don't know how the demand would be this high. And it does kind of feel like a cope for Nvidia to say, these GPUs were in very high demand, or they are in high demand right now. But they actually compared this launch to the RTX 30 series launch. Now, you guys know 30 series was a very, very exciting generation, really good uplifts, and people were very excited about it. And it was also when COVID hit, which meant a lot of people were at home and they used their computers a lot and they wanted graphics cards. They also had a cryptocurrency boom happen, so they needed to make a ton of graphics cards. Basically, they're saying during the 30 series launch that they couldn't make enough GPUs. And it's similar to how the 50 series is, where they can't make enough GPUs. They also said that it would be in their best interest to make the most graphics cards possible because, you know, you can sell to that demand. So that's what they told me, that they want to make the most graphics cards possible. But at the same time, I brought up to them this evidence. I mean, it's hard to see, you know, online retailers, how much stock they actually have. Honestly, I have no clue, but a actual brick and mortar store like Micro Center, this chart has gone around of the numbers of stock available for the GPUs, and we can see a lot of the 5090s and stuff were extremely low. Like, some Micro Centers didn't get a single 5090, you know, some of them only got 4. Now the 5080s were maybe a little bit more reasonable, but honestly, I would have thought this would have been 5090 stock. They first dismissed that, or is that actually real? Like, they saw that chart going around that this was the stock that was available. And what's funny is they work at Nvidia, so they know what stock was available. They didn't really say it was wrong, but they tried to downplay its significance of how real is this. They said that they just saw this chart floating around. Well, I got the information from Gamers Nexus. Then I did bring up the idea that, you know, you guys do make AI data center GPUs, and those make you a lot of money. Like gaming revenue is still extremely up. It's crazy actually. They make tons of money still on gaming, but AI is like 10 times what gaming makes. So, you know, if you want to prioritize profits, it makes sense to make the most GPUs for data center and AI as they possibly can, which, you know, I don't think that's a weird theory. I mean, that makes sense just from a business perspective, and they can only make so many GPUs. Now, Nvidia themselves, they said they do fight over fab capacity. They can only make so many. I think when you have a conversation with a company, because they can only say certain things, okay, you have to take into account what the company doesn't say. You know, what are they hiding or excluding from you? I think you need to take that into account even more than what they do say, because they didn't say that they are prioritizing gaming GPUs. They just said we could make more, and that it would be in their best interest to make more. They also brought up the idea, like unprompted, because they hadn't really seen my recent video about the stock manipulation stuff. They just dismissed the entire theory that manipulate the stock of the GPUs to make them look in a certain way, which in the power position that Nvidia is in, having dominant market share, I'd be surprised if they don't. They thought that was ridiculous. And then I said to them, is like, that was actually my theory. I'm probably not the first person that thought of it, but that's what I brought up in my video. And then all of a sudden, the tone shifted quite a bit when I said that. Pretty much everything that I brought up to them, they tried to scurry away from and not really answer the real questions, which is a typical thing from a business perspective, that, you know, you just don't address the things that are bringing up problems. If you don't address it, that means that there most likely is an issue. Okay, or that we are on to something, because they would just, if this wasn't true, they just outright address it and say it was wrong. I did also ask them if they knew anything about the melting GPU situation. Like, some 5090s are melting. I don't think it's a large amount. Basically, what Nvidia said is that they haven't been able to investigate any of these things up to this point in time, so they can't really give a full conclusion, but the melting issues have apparently been pretty few and far between. But the thing is, when you look at how much stock was actually available for this stuff, I mean, when you're talking about this little 5090s, I mean, they told me that there are thousands of 5090s out there, and I was like, that's not that many 5090s. Like, we got thousands. It's not even in tens of thousands or anything like that. This might end up being a wider spread issue with the melting issues, because BullSh even pointed out that the wiring on the new power management system for 5090s, despite them drawing more power, there's actually less safety checks on it. It could be worse than what the 4090 was before. It's just right now, maybe there's not enough out there to see an actual problem. Although from my personal experience with the new power connector, because I have the 5090, I think it gets in there pretty snug. I don't think I would ever have issues with it, but you know, you just have one thing wrong and it all starts melting, and or it catches fire or some shit like that, and you break your card. That's all they can really say about the burning GPU situation, because they haven't investigated any of them yet, because they haven't been able to get them. So once they do, then they'll probably have some answers, or they might try to sweep it under the rug. We're not 100% sure. But all of this, like, really flaky and weird, you know, market manipulation type stuff, I don't believe Nvidia's like excuses of what this is the case. It makes me concerned about the next GPUs coming up. Like, the RTX 5070 Ti is still yet to come. So this guy is rumored to have a release date on February 20th. We don't actually know when this comes out, but there's been a lot of retailers that have accidentally leaked stuff. Like, MSI accidentally on their website put a countdown on it, and then they like instantly took it away. And what's bad is the stock of it seems like it might be rough again, or the prices might be rough again. In Austria, that's where this GPU is listed, and this guy is 32% more than the MSRP on the 5070 Ti. So the 5070 Ti is a $750 GPU, at least in US pricing. They even took into account, you know, the built-in tax that's in Europe and all that kind of stuff, and it's still 30% over MSRP. But this gets me worried for the lower end cards, because you think that they'd be more competitive, because as you get on the price stack, AMD will actually start competing, and their new GPUs look pretty attractive. And there's another side of this too, as it goes down the price stack, especially compared to AMD. Nvidia might be delaying the launch of the RTX 5070. This guy was supposed to come out in February, but there is leaks right now, or at least rumors, that it could end up coming out in March, which would mean that they would delay the GPU, because the 5070 is most likely going to be the GPU that is going to be competing with AMD's 9070 XT or the 9070. This is a little bit later. I just wanted to pop in and let you know that there is some legitimate reasons why these GPUs are pretty low on stock. That is, for one, the manufacturing. So TSMC makes the GPU dies and everything. They did get hit by an earthquake 21st of January, which means a lot of the wafers and stuff are probably scrapped, and that's because this is such a precise, manufacturing process. If they just have an earthquake, then it can just ruin the manufacturing process. So that's just a shitty thing that happened. I don't know if this accounts for everything. You'd think they had been building up stock for months because it's on the same manufacturer node as their last generation, but you can only really say so much. Also, at the time of launch, for whatever reason, Nvidia chose to launch these cards right along Chinese Lunar New Year, which means a lot of people probably had time off, which means you probably aren't manufacturing as much stuff. And I think a lot of these cards are made in China, let's be honest. So a couple reasons why these could be leading towards lower stock. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, all the other points that I'm making are still completely valid. It's still in Nvidia's best interest to act the way that the theories are leading them to act. We don't have actual hard proof of them doing this, but yeah, it still makes sense. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about this. I hope I don't get in trouble with Nvidia. I don't mean anything like ill intention or anything. I just wanted to tell you guys a weird situation. All right. And I just wanted some answers for what's going on right now. Let me know what you think though. And I'll see you in the next video. Y'all have a good one and peace.